All right, we have some big news coming in. Manchester Test match has now been called off. This is the big breaking that we track right now. The 5th Test has now been called off. Remember, India-England Manchester Test match was all eyes was on that series. In fact, we're looking at the 5th and final test now that's been cancelled due to COVID-19 scare. We're looking at a physio, the coach who've been tested of COVID-19 positive, and at a time like this, the cricketing body were in a fix on whether or not to continue with the match at the moment. But we hear the information that's coming in right now is that there will not be a match. The 5th test has been cancelled. Let's quickly cut across to Boria Mazumdar for more on that. Boria, 5th and final test match completely cancelled now.
Yeah, Nabila, unfortunately, that's the news that we are getting from sources in England and from the ECB as well, that despite deliberations all night and this morning, the test match is being called off. That's the update that we are getting. Multiple proposals were on the table. One is a deferral by 2 days, one is a deferral by a few more days. But unfortunately, with the IPL round the corner, both of these proposals could not be agreed upon. There are late night deliberations between the ECB CEO and the Indian players and the Indian board. The Indian players were not very keen because all of them were apprehensive that they've been treated by their physio Yogesh Parmar. And if anybody has picked up an infection, the incubation period is about 4 or 5 days. So if something happens in the middle of the match, what happens then? The entire team would have to isolate, get into quarantine, which means they will not be able to go to Dubai for the IPL. So plenty of issues were put on the table. But what we are getting now, just now, about 5-7 minutes back, is that the match is being called off. That's what we are getting from ECB, and that's what we are getting from the BCCI also, that the match is being called off. That's the big news that's coming in at this point in time.
Boria, if you can give us some clarity on exactly who are those people who've been tested positive of COVID-19 and how is this really going to impact Team India itself?
I did not get your question full, but you said the COVID-19...
The names, those who are positive of COVID-19, if you can give us some clarity on those who are positive of COVID-19 and who feels the scare. Any of the players who seems to have come in close contact with those positive?
Yeah, no. I mean, all of the tests were returned negative last night, but another round of tests have been done yesterday. So the results of the test that came in last night at 10 p.m. India time was from the previous day. Yesterday, another round of tests have happened. No further players have tested positive after Yogesh Parmar, who's the assistant physio. So at this point in time, it's Ravi Shastri, Bharat Arun, R. Sridhar and Yogesh Parmar. Even Nitin Patel, he was not positive, but he was isolating because he was deemed a close contact to Ravi Shastri and he's been isolating for the last 7 days. The rest of the players have returned negative tests. But the point, Nabila, is that they were all in touch with Yogesh Parmar and being treated by him the last 3 days. So it takes time. All of us know that if you have been infected, it takes time to show up. So the incubation period is about 4 or 5 days. If something happened in the middle of the test match, then what would have happened? That is the big call. That is one of the apprehensions that the players had. And also remember, a lot of the players have their kids with them. Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, Ravichandran Ashwin, all have their families with them and the kids with them who are all unvaccinated by them. So all these factors were put on the table that if they mix, if they get into quarantine now, there's a way of saving further infection from spreading. All of these factors were put on the table, which I think is eventually resulting in the test match being called off. That's the result that I'm getting. That ECB and BCCI, despite multiple deliberations over the last 12 hours or so, unfortunately, the match has to be called off. And what a cracking seat.
Boria, what an unfortunate moment, because this is the time that we saw India really picking up on the game. It was leading in the series 2-1. At a point like this, to call off the match is quite a disappointment for fans altogether. But we believe, our sources tell us, the Indian players weren't too keen on continuing because of the COVID scare.
Yeah, I mean... just to reiterate what I was saying, yes, you're absolutely right about the series and the interest of the series and all of that. Unfortunately, the match is being called off is a pain for every fan. But yes, no player so far has tested positive. Fingers crossed they won't, because if they do, then the IPL too, will be shaken up, because all of the players will now fly to Dubai and get into quarantine for the IPL. That's another big tournament coming up. So all this, this is the new normal. We've got to face this how and why we can sort of, debate till donkeys come home. But the fact of the matter is that there is a lot of apprehension that infection might spread. People need to get into quarantine, move on to the IPL, then the World Cup. But this is the new way of life. Unfortunately, what a series ends in a bit of a stalemate.
Priya, of course, we are keen to know about the COVID-19 tests. You did mention that all of the players were tested. They've all come back negative. Any more tests that are still pending and awaited?
Yeah, yesterday another round of tests have been done. Results are pending today. So we'll get the results in some time from now. Because when Yogesh Parmar was tested positive, lateral flow tests were done. All were negative. RT-PCR was done soon after. That's the result that came last night around 10 p.m. India time, Nabila, which we broke on India Today, that all players' RT-PCR tests were also negative. Another round of RT-PCR tests were done, and that's the one that we will get results today. So we've got to see what happens there. But at this point in time, fingers crossed, all will return negative. And the IPL will go on as planned, because we do not want another stoppage to the IPL, which I don't think is happening, by the way.
Right, Boria, we're very keen to know on India's performance at this moment. Of course, now there's no point pondering on it, but to reflect back on exactly how they played out the game, India led 2-1 in the fifth series. After a little bit of a dismal performance initially, they finally turned the game around. If you can highlight exactly what was expected, what could have played out if at all India was playing this fifth series?
I was expecting 3-1. I mean, make no mistake, India made a fantastic comeback in the last test match at the Oval, despite being sort of underdogs after that Leeds performance. It was a stellar effort by the bowlers, Jasprit Bumrah and the others, stellar effort from the batters, including Rohit Sharma. Shardul Thakur played wonderfully well. You would have expected a 3-1. And you would have expected that closure to happen, beating Australia and Australia beating England in England. What a moment it would have been for Kohli and this team and Ravi and everybody else. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen. It will be an incomplete series. India has played stellar cricket at Lord's, stellar cricket at Oval. They've taken over London. Having said that, it will be an incomplete series. That's the outcome. Whether this match will be rescheduled, whether this match will be played later, what will happen, what about WTC points? These are all open-ended questions which we do not have answers to at this point in time. But from what we know, this will be an incomplete series which India was leading 2-1.
Well, Boria, thank you very much for joining us with those details. Of course, we are disappointed that India was playing quite well right at the fifth test. They reached spinning the game around. Unfortunately, the COVID scare had to end this exciting match for fans the world over. Thank you very much for joining us. But here's the big news coming in. Fifth and final test match now between India and England has been cancelled.